are joined right now by Spencer Strider, who is kind enough to come upstairs and join us. Always great to see you. How you doing?
Doing well, yeah. Thanks for having me.
What does well mean in the middle of February when you're coming back rehabbing?
Well, it means that I am mostly functioning without the immediate supervision of the training staff. So I like to get as far away from them as I can. Once I'm in baseball pants, it's usually a good thing. But yeah, they've done a great job of watching everything I do so that I can now be a little bit independent.
Do you like non-hovering, the aspect of non-hovering? I just want to do my work and...
I think it's a complicated question because I want feedback and I want all the information and I want different perspectives, but it's difficult to trust some of that when people come and go and there's, this guy's here for a little bit and this guy's here. So I think the rehab process, one of the good things is you're generally with the same little group. And then it's tough when you start inserting people back in, you start changing scenery, things get different. You get so, used to the same routine. Ultimately you're not just trying to accomplish the paper rehab, you're trying to be pitching again. So at some point you do kind of, I think, flip a switch where it becomes more about competition and less about practicing the skill and less about just rehabbing a surgery.
We should also stress the fact that it was not Tommy John surgery. They put a brace in your arm, and how much of a difference is that when it comes to rehab?
Having done both, I think it's a huge difference, and that's acknowledging, the initial differences just with my age, and I had TJ in college, I had a different group around me, and different set of experience, all that kind of stuff. So obviously different shape, whatever, but. It's definitely the second half of the program moves a lot faster. That's kind of the intention of the procedure, and it's not like you go in and you determine or you decide, I want to do this instead of TJ. It's not really how it works. It's if you're eligible. It's basically diagnose the injury. What is the remedy? Well, for my injury, it was the internal brace repair procedure. Had it been a different injury, Tommy John would have been the remedy, but. So it's not like an either-or.
What about markers? When people try to say, at this point, they try to put a date on it. At this point, they put a date on something else. I don't know. What's the reality of markers at this point for you in terms of it? I think a piece of paper with a date on it is just that. The player, the individual has to say, no, I'm ready for that. I might be ahead of that. So how does it work, and how is your patience as an individual?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, especially, like I said, especially where we are, where we've kind of flipped that switch, we're less about accumulating volume and, establishing the strength, post-surgery. We're really into the, practicing the skill, honing in the craft, increasing the level of competition and intensity. The schedule is there as a conservative estimate for reference. Ultimately, there's no purpose in hammering away at something. A quantity of bullpens or a quantity of live BPs or whatever isn't going to determine necessarily your effectiveness. So, and that's the case for healthy players. Some guys need more bullpens. Some guys need to throw more live BPs before they feel or they can determine that they're at a level that's good enough to compete. And I think that's generally the case. In reference to the conservative estimate that is based on the surgeon's expertise and the training staff's expertise. Ultimately, it's got to come down to me kind of introducing more intensity over time to try to gradually allow my body to understand that it's allowed to move faster and produce more force, and then ultimately make the judgment call that I'm ready for a live BP, or I need a live BP, I need to face a hitter, that kind of stuff.
Spencer Strider is here with us down at Northport. When you look at your injury last year and what the team did last year, on and off the field, was that the most bizarre season of your career?
Well, I think the COVID season might take the cake for most bizarre. Not that I'm unique in that experience. Obviously, everybody in the world dealt with that. But, I think certainly from the perspective of not, being with the team all the time and kind of viewing it honestly like a fan in a lot of ways. When the team's on the road, I don't have any real access. that's unique to anything that's going on. I don't know what the vibes are like necessarily. I just can't participate that way. So, and I think, what's important for me to do for the team is get healthy and do my work.
Is it almost more nerve-wracking watching it as a fan, not being there?
It kind of goes in and out for me. It did last year. There were times where I couldn't watch the game just because it wasn't going well, or I wasn't in the right space to watch it. You start to get a little itchy, not wanting to be out there. But I'll certainly say the armchair quarterback comes up pretty quick for me. I have all the answers when I'm watching from the TV.
Welcome to radio.
That's our show.
Fit right in. This is what our show is based on.
Right.
So do you look at pitching or anything in baseball as a fan, or do you look at fundamentals? Are you looking at a guy on a mound going, here's why he doesn't have stuff today? Mechanics of it. How do you watch a game?
It depends, I guess. I think, kind of like I was talking earlier just about, having supervision and stuff. I like all the information. Not just analytics. I think when we talk about information right now in baseball, that's kind of what people think, is they think about numbers and data. But I think what you're really talking about is just the process. And everybody does it differently. Like, I like spring training, just watching to see what guys do. I'll stay up all night and look at guys, bullpen data, and just see what my teammates are doing. I try to, and I think you can learn a lot from that. And
do you ever sit there and go, why the hell would he throw a change up there?
Yeah. I mean, I do that a lot myself. Why the hell did I throw a change up there? But I think that. But that's kind of a unique part of baseball. Is just there's not a right answer. In hindsight, there always is, but all you can really do is control what you can control, right? And so it's with something like pitch selection, it's really about having some purpose and process into how you're making those decisions, and then setting yourself up to just commit to execution. And then, after that, it's out of your control.
Can I just ask the other part about, let's just go back to the date thing. It's not to get to that first start. It's to be healthy enough to make every start. It's not about the first one, right? No
question. Yeah, that's something that we've explicitly said, and I think is important. Aspect to acknowledge at the outset of rehab is that this is not a like a diversion in your path. You're kind of reverse engineering your life in sports, in my opinion, from where do you want to end up? What's your ultimate goal? And then back that up to, way back up to, well, what can I do? What do I need to do right now? And I think rehab's the same thing. I told somebody the other day, like, exactly what you're saying. My goal isn't to get to the first start. That's not success to me. I think that, quite frankly, the industry needs to reframe how we evaluate surgery success or failure. Just getting a guy into a game, to me, is not a success. I think if he's not effective, if he's not healthy, if he's not consistent, was the surgery a success? Especially if he was doing those things beforehand. To me, it's about, we want to win a World Series. I need to be there at the end to help my team. There's got to be a slow build, and we've got to be taking incremental steps towards that goal, once rehab is over.
Spencer Strider is here with us, and Chris brings it up all the time. It's one thing to hit that milestone. How do you feel the next day? How's your recovery process the next day? Very important, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like I said, trying to introduce a little bit more intensity, a little bit more stress to the body, because there are, every day, or not every day necessarily, but each time we throw a bullpen, each time we take a step, because what you don't want to do is make a leap of faith, for lack of a better term. So you throw 20 bullpens or something, and everybody thinks, well, okay, he's good to go. He's throwing 20 bullpens. Let's throw a hitter in there, and let's try to get this guy out. Well, what if you're exposing yourself to a massive jump in intensity that was, you could have avoided by kind of forcing, for lack of a better term, some higher intensity, try to bridge that jump from a 5-point jump to a 1-point jump. I think that's what allows the body to handle that stress better, and because ultimately everything you're doing, in a way, is something you're doing for the first time in a rehab process, because you had so much time off, so the body is shocked, and you want to reduce that shock to as small as you can each time you make a jump.
24, 25 now. 25?
26.
26. What do you know about yourself that you didn't know when you were 20? And I do know that you I'm sure you think about things without putting the pressure of it. What do you look forward to learning about yourself at 26 years old?
Yeah, boy, we'd be here for a while. I was a very fixed mindset individual, and I think all of us are wired that way. That goes back to just, man, like our evolution as a species. I mean, we're tribal, and we're concerned about what other people think, and we're afraid of change. We're afraid of the unknown. We seek confidence and trust and comfort, and at the expense of knowledge and learning and growth, stimulus. And I think that, trying to preserve that youthful confidence that I had when I was a high school player and was, starting to receive praise and, exposed to that stuff for the first time, can lead to a real fixed mindset. And so it took some deliberate work and help from individuals to kind of coach that out of me. And, I think now I understand that tomorrow, even in 10 minutes, I'm going to be a more experienced, a wiser, a more knowledgeable person. I mean, that's the case for everybody.
So the goal is, let's say, without it being about pitching, the evolution is going to happen. So I'm 26, but I'm going to be 30. I'm going to be 35. It sounds to me like you don't mind understanding that for you it's a journey. I think some guys go, oh, wait, I want to have this and I want to have that and I want to have this many wins, or I want to have this many likes on whatever form of social media. You seem to want to just go, hey, I don't really know, but I do know it's going to change. So let's go for the ride.
Yeah, I mean, that's just process oriented versus outcome oriented to me. And I was a very outcome oriented player. And I think, I don't think that that's a malicious characteristic of athletes. I mean, ultimately, we're in the business of outcomes. If I don't produce outcomes, I have no job. So, how much I love the process doesn't matter at that point. But how do you, achieve outcomes? And it's, like I said, reverse engineering. I think that's kind of like at the centerpiece of what I would say is my process, and certainly my preparation is all based on reverse engineering. I've got to pitch this game. I've got to be here at this time with this skill, warmed up to do X. Well, how do I back up from there to where I am now and bridge those two things? And both in the short term and the long term, I think that's a really success. It's been a successful strategy for me.
We talk about the journey and adjusting the journey, but you're still a creature of habit, I would assume, right?
Yeah, so that's something I'm really diving into now is, we place a lot of trust in a routine, and ideally you're doing everything for a reason, and you've established a purpose behind anything, like, for instance, in your pregame routine. But I do think that an inability to part ways with any of those things starts to diminish the purpose if you're able to identify something better. I think that optimization should always be, something you're trying to achieve. And so, being married to a routine or just that becomes superstition, for lack of a better term, very quickly. And I think, you're looking for optimization. Everything can be better. It should never be, language of perfection. It's kind of like, I've used the example of, like, mastery. Like, you don't really know when you become a master at something. Nobody knows, like, when that benchmark is hit. But it's kind of a journey you're always on, and there's no destination. But once somebody has mastered something, it's evident. You can identify it, and that's kind of what I think the journey of an athlete should be in the process. Is like, I'm not going to get to perfection, but I'm always trying.
Do you think Gladwell is close, Malcolm Gladwell, when he says 10,000 hours? I mean, do you think there's anything to that?
I don't subscribe to that logic necessarily. I think, but just the idea of, experience and failure and accumulated failure and learning from success and just making adjustments and optimization over the course of long periods of time, I think is what, that fosters self-awareness. First of all, I think it takes self-awareness to be able to do those things, and it also creates a stronger sense of awareness to what you're doing and how you're thinking, how you're feeling. You have to be in tune with a lot of things to make adjustments, to have enough success to do anything that much.
You're a big music guy. I want to tell you, I think I'm a lot older than you. I'm 62. I think you music guys, you younger guys, you don't know the joy of an equalizer. You can tell me, but
I think he found a guy.
You have an equalizer?
Well, I like messing with the EQ for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I had a Mustang and I got an equalizer thrown in with 6x9s in the back, 4 inches in the door, and now I got a cassette, but I can and I saw the lights. That was amazing. I feel bad for your generation because I don't think you actually understand watching music that way. Is that fair?
Yeah, I will say vinyl is now the number 2 format for listening to music, at least in America. So I think the physical representation of music is starting to make a comeback. I think people really I think it's maybe not at my level, but it's kind of a cheap hobby, buying a vinyl, and you don't need a phenomenal setup.
So what is
to enjoy it?
I don't want to ask what yours is, what yours costs. You probably have a couple. But what's the entry point for enjoying music the way that you think it's supposed to be heard? I
first bought from Target, like a $100 little briefcase, Victrola maybe, and it sounds horrible, but you go out and you get your first vinyl, or somebody gives one to you. And I think there's something different. I mean, we just don't. Most people don't experience. I mean, I agree with you. Young people, shuffle button, horrible. Hate the shuffle button. Get the shuffle button out of here.
People have created something that's supposed to be listened in an entirety.
So I completely agree.
Okay.
Yeah, they put, and that's something that vinyl really, even more than CDs, demonstrates, because you don't flip a CD. And you start to get in the history of vinyl and why songs are 3.5 minutes and how albums end up about 30 minutes. There's 15 minutes of space on each side of a vinyl, give or take, to have a certain quality of sound to each track for the to fit the grooves on there. And so when you start to understand that you can listen to an album on Apple Music and start to finish, and you can enjoy it, and you can still experience albums that way, but then you get it on vinyl and you realize now, the reason the 5th track ends this way is because I've got to get up and flip the vinyl, and they wanted to indicate this literal stop and pause, kind of a halftime of the record. And that's the kind of stuff that most people, young people, don't understand.
Seems like you enjoy the vinyl. You young kids.
Yeah.
Seems like you enjoy the vinyl journey as much as you enjoy, or maybe more, the pitching journey.
I have a very neurotic, obsessive personality.
Interesting.
Yeah, so coffee has been this way for me. Fortunately, it's not led to tons of money being spent. The vinyl's getting there, but
$30 a pop now for a new release.
Well, and I'm a big limited edition guy, pre-order, and the way they get me to is they get me on there, and they've got the pre-order the vinyl, and then if you pay $10 more, you get a free T-shirt, and I'm a sucker for some band merch. So
what about colored vinyl?
I love them.
Oh, you do?
Love a colored.
So
vinyl.
You'll do a couple extra bucks, limited, and a colored vinyl.
Yeah, I'm bad about getting every one too. Like if I really like an artist or an album, I'll get a lot of times what they do is first edition. I'm a first edition guy, so I want to try to get as many first editions as I can. Not that I plan to resell them. I've got some psychosis here. They'll come out with 4 different colorways.
So you didn't go with
I'll buy all of them.
You didn't go that there's a purity to this. You called it a psychosis to this. That's your word, not mine.
It's becoming that. Yeah.
All right. So let's finish up. What's too commercial for you? Or do you have a line of delineation when you go?
Because your vinyl night is coming back.
Too commercial.
That's right, truest.
Too commercial.
August 19th.
It's August 19th. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we have not announced the bands yet. They may or may not have been picked. There may be or may not have been a lot already done, but I can't get into it yet. I don't know. I'm some of my narcissism definitely renders me somebody who likes stuff that nobody else knows.
Mm-hmm.
And the indie genre is full ripe of those things. So I don't know when it becomes too commercial.
Have you bailed out of following somebody
because
you go?
That's where I was about to say.
Okay.
There's a couple artists like even Tame Impala. I loved Tame Impala before Currents came out. Currents blows up. Less I Know the Better was not the first most enjoyed song on that album, and then years later it's unavoidable. Now it's on commercials. That's unfortunate to me. I was listening. I
you beat everybody to the punch.
Yeah, that happens all the time. There's an artist right now named Joe who is Joe Keery, I think is his last name. I can't remember exactly. He's the guy who plays Steve Harrington on Stranger Things. Well, people didn't know he was a part of a band called Post Animal that was formed when he and some of his bandmates were in school in Chicago.
Okay.
That was kind of an underground indie band, and it got moderately popular, and then he kind of broke off because he was getting all this acting stuff, still wanted to do music. That's really his first love. Releases an album under the moniker Joe, DJO, and like super cult favorite indie album. Nobody knows what it is. Then he releases his second album under that called Decide. Unbelievable. 2 years ago it came out. Nobody knows what it is. It's awesome. Now it's a TikTok song. Like one of the songs is a TikTok song, and it's exploded.
I'm out.
And it's just like, that
I can
sucks.
tell
Now he's got another album on pre-release right now. It comes out this spring, and I'm not even that excited. It's a shame.
So do you listen to classics like if Sinatra,
Miles Davis, yeah, stuff like that. I like jazz a little
ballads, like I'm talking 50s, 60s. Is that?
That might be a little too early for me.
Okay.
I'm more into this mellow classic rock, like 60s, early 70s.
Okay,
I mean,
so-
talk Steely Dan now.
So what do you
for
think of the
hours.
Beatles?
I like the Beatles, but I definitely can acknowledge that I'm way past the window where I'm capable of enjoying the Beatles as much as somebody older than me. I mean, there's just the ceiling's lower for me.
Okay.
That's just a fact.
But you love Steely Dan.
Love
and the
Steely
mellow
Dan.
classic rock of the 60s and 70s.
Absolutely.
Did you watch the documentary?
On Steely Dan?
Well, the yacht rock. Because Steely
no.
Dan's a big part of it. Have you not
Yeah,
seen
right,
this?
absolutely. I haven't
Steely
seen
Dan's a big part of it. The guys from Toto, Steely Dan, and they talk about the evolution of who these guys are. They were studio session guys, whatever it turned out to be. But just watch it all the way through, because I promise you, if you're a Steely Dan fan, the last 25 seconds, just be ready. The last 25 seconds. It's a yacht rock documentary.
Don't want
Talk
to spoil
about
it
delayed
for you.
gratification.
Yeah,
My God.
yeah.
What's that on?
It's HBO Max, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was. But yeah, it's especially because you said Steely Dan, you must have an appreciation for some of that music. Now, last thing, what about Christopher Cross? And because,
Sure.
Okay, so what do you think of music like that? I find it horrible.
Oh, I don't know. I really like it, and I see the as an amateur musician myself, I can see the influences of a lot of modern artists
That's
from
it.
that genre.
Okay.
I think that there's definitely a delineation. The Beatles kind of that age kind of opened up the door, and you saw, like you said, a lot of these studio artists now get really funky, get really interesting, some stuff that was really different. And I think you can trace a lot of it back to, like, Steely Dan in particular.
They do.
Has influenced a ton of
This
modern
documentary,
artists.
they do.
And interestingly enough, because I'm so tight with the music scene now, I know some of these artists, and they love Steely Dan. Like, if they can play just like anything they want at a concert, they're going to cover a Steely Dan song. A lot of them.
That's the prevailing theme in this yacht
Yeah.
rock documentary.
Yeah,
it all goes back to Steely
They're
Dan.
sort of Patient X.
Yeah.
They're Patient X in this
Yeah.
whole thing. Last thing, give me Atlanta's a
Keep
music
saying
city.
last thing.
I know. Sorry. Do you have to go? Atlanta's a music city.
Love it, and it's perfect for my personality, because hip hop is kind of taking everybody's attention. So all the music I like gets overlooked and nobody knows about it. And so I can just kind of weevil into my little, venues and everything, and nobody knows who I am. And I'm talking to, hip people that, are cool and wearing their Vans like I am. And nobody, it's just, we're just all music fans. So, yeah, but phenomenal music scene. And, I'll self-promote here. The vinyl giveaway, like, that's where that idea came from. It's like, man, there's a whole bunch of music in this city that's not a part of that hip hop genre, and it just doesn't. So it's having a hard time making its way out. And what can we do? As I would say the most recognizable brand in the state, and certainly the city, to help kind of bring some light to it. And I think it's been successful, and people really enjoy it.
Give us two artists that we should listen to.
Two artists you should listen to from Atlanta.
From Atlanta, from anywhere, because you're the guy. Vinyl Night is August the 19th.
Would you have said Jason Isbell 8 years ago? Too popular now?
I gotta respect Charlie Morton here. I like Jason Isbell. I do.
Okay.
I like him as a person too.
Okay.
I'm a big Jason Isbell guy.
right.
The music is just really right at the edge of what I like. And so, by the day, maybe I'm in, maybe I'm out. I don't want to give away any vinyl giveaway bands, but so I'll highlight a couple others here. One that you should check out, going to be way over your head, Wayuka. Real cult favorites from Atlanta.
I can't even spell it. I'm writing it
It's
down
like
like I know how to
It's
spell
like
it.
the street.
Yeah, the street.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Wayuka.
Yeah.
And then let me think of another good one. We'll go way in the other direction. There's a girl who's blowing up right now. She's going to become super famous. So this is the end. I got to be out on her now. But from Atlanta, Girl Puppy. She's got a new album coming out. this
Wayuka
spring.
and Girl Puppy.
All right,
Yep.
I'm in.
Duly noted.
He'll do it on the elliptical, and he'll come back and he'll give me the elliptical review. That's how he listens.
Start with Wayuka's third album,
All right.
and then good luck with the rest of it. This might be over your head.
Okay. I am a simple person.
Okay.
You're right about that.
3 quarts. If it's more than 3 quarts, I think we're
And
both.
then girl puppy. Spencer Strider, it's great to see you.
And congratulations, what you're doing with foster families,
Yeah,
foster
absolutely.
kids. We'll talk about that again when we get a chance.
Absolutely.
But I know that's really important to you. And Braves games are a great way to sort of get that word out.
Yeah.
So we will talk
thank
about
you.
that.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll talk to you when you get back to town. Again, appreciate you coming up and spending some time with us.